Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today's story is going to be the sort of story that everyone wishes for when they go and have some energy healing. A story of something that changed someone's life very quickly. And I'm going to use this particular story as the basis for some of my other videos I'm going to do with the Learn Energy Healing channel, to help have it as an example of something that people wish for and why it might not be the case for everyone else. So bear that in mind. Please do watch those other videos if you haven't already. So this story is of a gentleman from France. Obviously, I'm not going to give names here. And this was soon after I got back to England after moving from New Zealand, in the early years of me being a full-time healer. And at the time I was offering a lot of implant removal things. That was the most popular thing at the time. I'd become quite well known on the internet. I was on the first page of Google and all the other search engines at the time. Things have changed with the way they put you in different pages, but I was very well known at the time. So this gentleman came to me with problems, lots and lots of problems. He had lots of different voices in his head. He was wondering if he was being psychically attacked, whether the voices were different beings. And he obviously wasn't in a very good state in his physical life too. Lots of problems with his relationships, relationship to himself, his family. Lots of problems thinking clearly and applying himself in the world, basically. And what he perceived and what I also perceived as well as issues in the astral, entities taking advantage of him in his weakened state. So anyway, he booked in for an implant removal session. His English, I don't think, was very good, so he did it absently, so I never actually got to see him face to face. And I did an implant removal session. And I went through his aura, his body, from top to bottom, removing what I perceived as implants. Everything from things that look like octopuses and things that look like devices, all the different things I've written about on my implant removal service. I worked methodically down his body, pulling out as much as I could within the hour-long session back then. I do hour-and-a-half sessions now. And yeah, I felt like I did a pretty decent job considering it was an hour, and wrote a detailed report of what I sensed and where and what I pulled out. And yeah, he responded fairly quickly, saying that he felt a lot lighter and a bit clearer, and that he felt like that was a really worthwhile experience, and he was grateful that he'd had that. And some months later, he wrote back to me and booked in for another appointment. And he says, he was still in a bad state, even though he felt better from the first session. And that he was in a mental asylum. I'm not sure if he was in a mental asylum during the first appointment or any period before that, but I know that at that time he was in a mental asylum. And that he'd, booked the appointment from there in France. And this time he wanted a distance bar session. At this point, I must stress that I do distance bars, not the access consciousness bars, because they don't recognize that you can do it at a distance. Or if they do, they probably don't like to teach people or let people do things at a distance. Probably, I'm guessing, because they don't believe most people can do it at a distance. Either way, I get a sense that they're very protective of that particular methodology. So yeah, that's their stance on it. So that's why I call it distance bars, because it's basically bars, but my version of it done at a distance. So same again, absent, no video call. And I just let the energy run through my fingers. as if he was there in front of me in person. And even though I definitely felt a lot of energy flow from my fingers through to his head and his aura around his head during the session, to be honest, I didn't feel like I was fully present. I felt like my mind was wandering off a little bit, even though I kept bringing it back, of course, to focus on the healing. Yeah, so I wasn't fully paying attention. And even though there was tons of energy that definitely shifted and came out, it didn't feel like it was my best effort from my point of view, at least. Next day, when I get an email back from him, he says, "Wow, that was fantastic. I'm very impressed. I feel so much better." And there's me thinking, oh, crikey, I didn't really actually feel like I put my best effort in, even though the intention was there from the start, to help him in the best way possible. And with bars, you're just letting energy flow. You're not, trying to look around for things or pull things out. It's just simply letting energy flow into the different points that are part of the bar's treatment. I thought, oh, crikey, wow. Well, that was pretty good, considering I wasn't concentrating too much. And then a couple of weeks later after that, he says, wow, that bar session was fantastic. I'm now out of the mental asylum. My life has changed. I don't have any of the crazy thoughts in my head. It doesn't feel like I'm being psychically attacked anymore. I can think straighter. I have an idea of what I want to do with my life now. And he was very, very thankful. And yeah, as far as I know, that's what continued to happen after that appointment. And, I had a lot of experiences like that where, within 1 or 2, sometimes 3 appointments, people had a significant shift and their life changed, and they sent emails saying how grateful they were. They were amazed at how quickly things turned around. I think that guy might have written a testimonial on my website. I'm not sure. I'll have to check, but yeah. Not everyone does sort of write a testimonial, and even if they're very, very thankful, they don't necessarily want their name on the internet. They don't necessarily want to have a testimonial. And I think a lot of that's because of people not wanting to have their friends, family, or other people associate them with spiritual things. I think some people are a bit embarrassed or feel like they might be judged for it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did write a testimonial there. So yeah, one example of many possible stories I could give you where there was a sudden change around. However, and this is the basis for some of my other videos that I'm going to be doing on the Learn Energy Healing series of videos that I've done, a lot of the time it's not like that. This is the sort of thing, the story that people would like to think would happen to them too. But for the majority of people, it's a combination of some energy healing plus some other tips, some lifestyle changes, learning to think in different ways, learning to act in different ways to mirror the energetic changes. So in other words, yeah, like I say, a lifestyle change. But for some people, when they're very open and they're very believing of a particular ability of a healer, believing in the technique, believing that things can change very quickly, not necessarily on a conscious level. Sometimes it is actually more a subconscious or unconscious thing, that there's actually a deep belief within them, even if they're not necessarily consciously aware of it, that things can change that quickly, that miracles can happen. So if there's that sort of matching, or at least some sort of state of mind or being that they can at least meet me halfway, and that there's some sort of agreement that there's a possibility that things can change that quickly, then yeah, things can change that quickly. It's very different with people who believe on a conscious level, but they haven't really become aware of the sub or the unconscious yet, that might actually have a different belief to what they consciously believe. And that might be a nice video actually for another time, you know, talking about, even if you consciously believe something, there's still that vibration in your sub or unconscious, your aura, if you like, your cellular memory, if you like, that actually might believe the opposite and might not allow you to change as quickly as you would like. And how you can change that, of course, over time. You might like to actually look on my written blog on my website, because I've recently written about the difference between soul memory and cellular memory. The whole concept that you have a memory from your past lives and wherever you lived, on whatever planet, in whatever body, you know, all the memories you've taken with you from those lives versus the memories in the physical body, which is much more based on what your parents did and their parents did and the physical body's ancestry, what they believed and what got passed down here. That's also a useful thing to look into as a different way of looking at things compared to sub and unconscious. Anyway, I hope that story is useful for you. I hope it highlights that, yes, some sudden healings do happen. People's lives do get changed around very quickly within 1, 2, 3 appointments sometimes. But bear in mind what I've also said, that the majority of people, it's not kind of that way. And we can look into some healing stories and other videos where I can highlight that to some degree or another. Okay, if you would like to support this channel, please do like and subscribe, and I will see you in another video.